It is 36 degrees and we are profusely sweating. You can see my sweat here, and I am with one of the probably profound influencers, at least in my life. I met him accidentally in one meeting, okay, of donors, which I was called to come and present. That's how I met Balasubramanian. What is molecular biophysics to do with uh, what you are doing, sir, now?
Well, this is perhaps a reference to the fact that a long time back I had defined my life as want to do research in modern biology, biochemistry. And after biochemistry in Central College, Bangalore, I was drawn to Indian Institute of Science, where there was a very charismatic personality, Professor G. N. Ramchandran, who was one of the founders of molecular biophysics in India, and very deep thinker, very frank, childlike in his curiosity, and one of the most inspiring personalities that I met. The molecular biophysics that I might have learned from him or he tried to teach me was a matter of detail, but certain attitudes that he imbued. For example, he gave us all the homework as to how to calculate the dihedral angle if the coordinates of the 4 atoms are known. It had been worked out years before, it was available in the library, but when he gave it as an assignment, I thought that I should try to work it out for myself from first principles. I spent the whole night and came up with 2 wrong answers, presented. The next day Ramchandran came and plonked all the answers, and he looked very unhappy and said, I am very unhappy with all your answers. I only feel that Balasubramanian was okay, but the fact that he didn't get the right answer was less significant than the fact that he tried for himself, So that was quite profound, I think, what he was trying to tell me. Actually, this quest led me to try and do a PhD in molecular biology, which took me to US, and something which disturbed me was it's very strange that for the first time I was away from India, and I suddenly thought I should try to figure out what India is all about. Sometimes this happens to people and they go away from India. I was disturbed by the fact that there were many peers, good friends and all that, who are trying to do and actually did good top class physics, biochemistry, molecular biology, but their specialization seemed to trap them in such a way that many of them would come back to India, even to very high priced institutions like Indian Institute of Science, AFR. They'll say the facilities are not enough to do good research there, research atmosphere doesn't exist, they'll come back to US, that's something which I was psychologically not prepared for. But I didn't know what else to do with my life, but I came back to India, decided that I'll figure things out for myself. This is where I think that another great influence in my life, my father, everybody was telling me that you spent 4 years in US, why didn't you finish a PhD and come back at least? My father understood that I wanted to figure out things for myself, and he was a very brave man in an unconventional sense. He had no fear of the future as to what will I do for a living, will I make enough money for this, that. He wants to do something for himself, let him figure himself out that way. So I came back from an unfinished PhD in 1982, and for the next 10-12 years it was like a wild exploration of various kinds. I was first a student and then a teacher in Krishnamacharya. I tried to learn for myself, teach myself Ayurveda. Though I was a Tamilian by birth, I had hardly learnt any Tamil because I grew all over India. I learned Hindi and I learned Sanskrit, and I did a deep dive into Tamil, and I was fascinated by the richness of its grammar and the richness of how it talks about Tamil as a way of life. I was fascinated by music. I taught myself some cooking. I relish making pickles, variety of things into traditional water management systems and all that. But some of the people who very deeply influenced me when I tried to figure out what Indians did before we got into all modern science and technology. On the one hand, there was Yogi Krishnamacharya, who was a legendary person. He was 95 years old even when I met him first and started learning. Because before that I used to think that all these stories about India, glory in those days, there must have been something, but a lot of that was exaggerated nonsense at what I used to think. But when I saw in the year 1980s that here was a man 95 years old, fit as a fiddle, much more fit than me, sharp memory, great scholarship, great empathy, top professional performance. Amongst the students were the governor of Tamil Nadu, the gardener's daughter, there was Balu. He treated everybody with equal courtesy, and never seen anything like that. Great learning. The other was scholar Dharampal, who gave a very different idea and perception of what Indian society was in the pre-British times, etc. So this was exciting, and I was very grateful that all the people to whom I went to trying to learn something, seeks knowledge, they were not dismissive, they were not telling me or making me feel that I was wasting their time. They were very generous in sharing with me and telling me. So there was lots and lots of learning which were to come back repeatedly to me, when I tried to do something specific in science, technology and all that. And in the meanwhile, though it's mentioned incidentally, I also met Vijayalakshmi, who was in a quest, and our thoughts, our paths crossed. So between 1982 to 1983, 94, it may appear as if in my CV there is a big gap and I did this, I did that. But I think it's a period of rich learning, and for the first time for me trying to figure out what it means to be an Indian, what it is. I mean, where my roots are from, where my ancestors came. I went to my ancestral temple for the first time, looked around to see where my great grandfather was a Vedic scholar, he was teaching in some Pathshala there, etc. So that was a very exciting period for me. When people thought that I had wasted so many years, I thought for the first time I was discovering meaning in my life. So that's how it started.
Amazing. So our Gen Z is a lot to learn.
Yes,
So
that's true.
I think it's a one thing I find profound is amazingly Gen Z thinking. Okay.
So, okay.
So I don't care what's happening. I'll go and explore. That's what Gen Z is thinking these days. Amazing. Then I met Vijay. Vijay one day called me. I take liberty in calling her Vijay, and Dr. Vijayalakshmi, saying I want to visit your farm. Okay. And she went to Tiptur. Okay, I was not there. She went to Tiptur. Then she called. Wow, what I saw there, it's amazing. From a PhD on spiders, how spiders can be used to control pests. Okay, to what you are doing, Dr. Vijayalakshmi. 66 years, if I can get your age correct. 66 now?
67.
67, I'm sorry. Okay,
No.
got that number wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
And you got an energy of a Gen Z. Okay. I'm using Gen Z because a lot of Gen Zs are sitting there. Okay. And a lot of I see Gen Zs have a lot of energy. I think they can't match your energy. So little bit of yourself, Dr. Vijayalakshmi.
Spiders to, let's say, agriculture. I mean, how did this happen? And also, I mean, getting into spiders itself was something which I didn't have a plan. In fact, my plan was to kind of even do something on cell biology. I mean, go for my post graduation to Delhi to do specialization in cell biology, and somehow I was completely disillusioned by the kind of academics that happened. And then I came and I was looking for something different, and that's where I met my guide, Professor Shivaraman, who said, look, nobody has worked on these spiders, why not take this up for a PhD? And that's when I said, let me do this. And this was a very interesting piece. I mean, for the first time, in fact, got to even write the first guidebook on spiders in India, which led to several research after that. But then I have come a long way from spiders to the rice and other things which we will be discussing. Well, in the year 1982, when I was almost completing my research on spiders, I met with a study group of which Balu was also a part of. This group was called Patriotic and People Oriented Science and Technology. These were a group of people who, were all doing their full-time jobs like IITs and the other the institutions, frontier institutions. But this study group wanted to really understand what is the problem with the way we practice science and technology today, and also look at our ancient sciences and technologies, rather ancient Indian sciences. Is there something called even Indian science and technology, and what is the contemporary relevance of that? Not to say that once upon a time we had a glorious past, and just talk about it. How can we apply that? That's where I met Balu also. He had also come, was part of that group. He told us about several things he was doing. He was also part of that group, and that's where I was introduced to Vriksha Ayurveda, our traditional agriculture practices, all the studies, and we both worked on that. But practically also we wanted to do something, experiment with something. That's when we said, let us start something on our own. Let us see how we can apply this rather than just, all the time just have an understanding. Practically, can we dive deep into something? That's when even the Center for Indian Knowledge Systems was born.
Amazing energy, even in this conversation. Dr. Vijayalakshmi, okay, I can call
You
Vijay.
can call me Vijay,
Okay,
Shashi.
yeah.
That's fine.
So, okay, and Balu, I can call you Balu.
Yeah.
So amazing to know how you guys, both of you met, okay, and now almost 50 years married now, or
40.
40,
40,
40
just
years,
completed
40 years, okay, and the challenge I see is someone who is an idealist, okay, and who is thinking a little bit nomadic in terms of what to do with my life, okay, to very structured thinker, okay, who goes and actually completes the PhD, okay, against
Thanks,
the
you got the
person,
message, yeah.
the,
Not a refugee.
not a refugee, and who didn't complete his PhD and came back and saying, hey, I want to search something, okay. So what is the reason behind CIKS, Center for Indian Knowledge Systems, which last 32 years you have been trying to pilot? Little bit on that one, Balu.
Hey, one is that right in the days in US when I had questions about something larger than the immediate career PhD, some of the people whom I encountered who really had larger questions were severe or serious Marxists. So I was attracted by their idealism and the fact that they had a concern about India, but it seemed very unreal. For example, I had attended in say 1981 meeting with some friends in an apartment in Columbia University. We'll spread a map and say 7 red stars, our comrades are fighting from these liberated areas. It looked very unreal to me. And when I came back and joined this PPHD group also, there were groups of brilliant thinkers, but many of them were having their own full-time jobs, occupations in IIT and all that, which gave them a vantage point, advantage and all that. But I felt that I had the liberty as well as a mindset to delve deep into some area of science, technology and knowledge systems, rather than saying that I am not interested only in the glory that was India, fine, but practically can we work out consequences of what Indian knowledge system would translate into today. In a sense, I had dabbled with a lot of other things like yoga, traditional metallurgy and metalworking, on which I had worked on a project, traditional water management systems, and my friend and close friend and as a mentor Darshan Shankar was deeply into traditional knowledge of Ayurveda and health. Agriculture seemed to be an area where we can make our foray and looked at. No? And why agriculture? The atrocious answer is we didn't have background in anything anyway, so it hardly matters whether we chose agriculture or architecture, if I can say so without sounding terribly arrogant, because I used to think that perhaps we can bring a particular value because of some modern training, rigorous thinking, scientific attitude, etc. What saved me was that I went there with an open mind, because I couldn't do any of these, but I learnt a whole lot. But this open mind saved me. For example, sometimes we ask that have you learned, just to tell even a few small things. The way in which people went about doing even some small business or science and technology deeply struck me about how they had thought through. Take yoga itself. He had asked something like, are you trying to preserve knowledge or research or do something new? What I observed, the way in which yoga is taught in Yoga Mandiram or Ayurveda is, our traditional people thought of knowledge as three levels. One is Tattva, that is the basic worldview, the Panchamahabhut Siddhant, Tridosh Vichar is timeless, it is as valid today as it was centuries back. Shastra, the practical application of it, today's lifestyle, transport, the kind of vocation, occupation that we have, food that is possible, etc., is very different what it was 500 years back. And Vyavahara or Prayog, the practical application, if somebody comes to you with a teacher who is standing throughout the day, some traveling salesman who is going throughout the day, housewife who has different type of thing, each one of them have to be taught or helped with yoga in a different way. This idea that certain basic things are timeless, some other things change with time, some other things have to be applied with context, is very deeply there in various of our knowledge systems. For example, I used to have a very simplistic thought that we should standardize certain things. One of the problems is if we do not measure and we do not standardize, we are losing that. But how I came to learn differently about that was once we had taken around a facility, I was accompanying a group of Ayurveda people, including a famous Ayurvedic scholar. We were taken around the modern Ayurvedic research facility of a pharmaceutical company, where a young researcher who joined, he said, I have completely standardized treatment for diabetes. So we all turned around and looked at by the BP Nanal, we knew it has something to say about it. Then BP Nanal said, thank you sir, but I hope you also standardize the patients who are coming to you for treatment. If a diabetic is, one is a 60-year-old man who has some particular lifestyle, another is a 12-year-old child, a pregnant woman, it's not make any sense to say I have standardized something, You have to be responsive to the context, what is the age, what is the vyavaha, what is the diet, what can be done, what cannot be done. So some of these notions which I thought were great contribution to traditional knowledge, I had to learn a lot, and unlearn what I thought I could contribute, So getting into an open mind meant that I could identify some priorities, I could learn a lot from that. I can talk more about it later. Lots of learning in terms of tradition, not just a collection of recipes, but as a methodology, but as a value system imbibed in it. Just one other example I can just give. And Darshan Shankar and I were in the early days of FRLSC. We said, let us look at some industries that are using natural resources like herbs. Some Ayurvedic industries were studied, and some group of highly professional people who have studied business administration, they looked at the traditional Ayurvedic industry, the well known reputed industry near Mysore actually. They said quality of work is great, but the product mix is wrong. So we said, what exactly do you mean? Supposing they are making 100 products, what the analysis showed is that 50% of the profit came from about 25 products, another 30-40% of the profits came from 25 more products. The remaining 50 products is contributing less than 10% to your sales and revenue. You should cut out those products. So we had the humility to say, let us present it those family which is doing it, what do they have to say? What they said was something profound. They say we make a number of products, we are a business, we have to survive, but we also have to give a complete portfolio of herbs to an Ayurvedic practitioner who is practicing. Take something like Karna Bindu, which is used for some ear disorders. Only 1 in 100 patients do that. But if I say it hardly brings me any revenue and cut it out, then the Vaidya who needs that is deprived of that. Is it not part of my dharma to provide for that also?
No?
The modern thinking on that could be that you cut out all that, you make a profit, then 2% of that profit, the CSR, you plow it back, etc. But this is a different type of a thinking. They thought through this very deep way, type of thing. So I was humbled by a lot of things like this which I could see and hear. So anyway, so the fact that it's a bit arrogant to say that hardly matters there is agriculture, because I didn't know so many other things also, so why not agriculture? So there was a lot of learning in it, that's right, and we tried to see what value we could add in some way.
Very interesting background to CIKS, okay?
Okay.
So,
of course, sorry to say our stories may be different. She may say that she Okay.
No, but on that point, Balu, organizations like CIKS, which you are piloting for 32 years now, both of your lifetime work, okay, and of course, lot of support coming from donors and people who are conscious about what you are doing. What I'm trying to say is, we are just sitting here with so many things, okay, but we tend to think that I'm center to this existence. There's no realization to the fact that there are a lot of things around us. A lot of things exist, a lot of things survive. What happened? What happened? That thought that we became central to this ecological story which we are telling a lot of people. And while we are on that topic, why are we making farmers pay for it? We believe, farmers need to farm in an ecologically sensitive manner. What does it mean? Um, don't you think as a on your 32 years of journey, you are trying to document a lot of things which are happening in the farming ecosystem, and amazing documentations I have read, that sites documentation, at least I have read it 4 or 5 times, okay, of course in this preparation to this discussion, and also we are working together. These two questions which have been very disturbing, at least personally to me. Lack of understanding of ecology and making one section of society, we believe, okay, I'm paying customer, okay, you farm ecologically sensitive manner. While I continue to drive, I continue to destroy, I continue to construct roads, I continue to pollute, I continue to throw plastic, I continue to consume the way I want, I procure 100 kgs of food, 40 kgs we throw, and that's the way I'm splurging my life. Uh, so how do you balance in 32 years? Have you gotten into this kind of dilemmas? How do you balance this, Balu?
There's a whole, I mean, plethora of questions at various levels. You want to start with anything, or I should start, or I don't know. I
You
think.
start. You start. I'll add. I'll add.
No, here again, I'm just feeling every now and then I ask myself, what is it that I'm contributing to this whole scene, you know. I'd say in a very fundamental sense, the reference point to which I keep on going back if I want guiding light as to through all this mess, you know, what is it that I can do or make a difference? It seems to me I keep coming back to Gandhi, you know. At the level of Hind Swaraj, there's a basic philosophy, but in many other ways it's almost like a practical manual, you know. So what is it that I can do in this entire situation? Sometimes when I ask, I feel that at one point when he came back from South Africa, Gokhale said that you please go around India and spend 1 year, don't talk anything, just listen, understand. Some point he was asked, what is your secret and why do you think you are giving so much confidence to people? He said, I am only trying to give voice to the thoughts that lay deep and buried in the hearts of the Indian people, you know. I am only trying to give voice to the thoughts and feelings that lay buried deep in the hearts of the Indian people. Sometimes I feel that what we are endowed with, or what I am endowed with because of the privilege of modern upbringing, education, all that, is a certain articulation, a certain way to put things in a larger frame. I see answers to many of this very powerfully in the way people express themselves, you know, in a set of anecdotes rather than an articulated article. In the outskirts of Chennai, there is a group of women who are helped to set up a small processing unit of medicinal plants, which is really dependent on the forest near them. So some VIPs are visiting them and said, this is great business and all. And one of the IAS officers said that, can you scale up this business? So they just were silent, didn't anything. I will give you a machine that can process 5 times this, etc., etc. You can scale up and make the profit. They were still silent. Later on, my friend who was involved in this asked them that, did you hear him say, yes, you didn't say, oh, he is an IAS officer, he is a well read man, what is there to say, but what do you think about it? Then she said in Tamil, இந்த காடெல்லாம் நம்பி தான் இங்கே வியாபாரம் இருக்குது, காடை விட வேகமாக இங்கே வியாபாரம் எப்படிங்க வளர முடியும்? Said our entire business is dependent on the wildlife and the plants that grow. How can I grow my business faster than the rate at which the tree grows? You know, this dependence deeply embodies the idea that we are a child of the phenomena. We are not a master of the phenomena. Every now and then we pretend or we think that we are a master of the phenomena, but we are a child of the phenomena.
What an analogy, Balu, just
giving.
What an analogy, okay, you gave. And that person probably, okay, in our census list, she's ticked as a illiterate.
Yeah, illiterate.
Okay, and amount of wisdom, okay, in that statement, no, that my business is dependent on forest. How can my business be faster than the what forest can do?
Means I'm meeting the the root of my business and cutting the tree on which I am sitting. This person will be illiterate, just as all the traditional breeds of cattle will be non-descript, you know.
Yes.
All the traditional rice varieties are other than basmati, you know, they are peculiar ways to describe this.
They are called as non-basmati rice, not traditional.
No, I think see, that's one way of classification. My classification is again, in my view, is limitation of human mind. Okay, I think we need to take it, give that, give that one. The people who existed, okay, for time immemorial, and generations to generations, they understood knowledge of that entire local area, their thought process, their thinking, what the ancestors told. That's the embodiment of knowledge, and practicality of that knowledge. Putting there, it's a wisdom.
Yeah, there is deep wisdom of people who express or struggle to express in various ways, but we have to be a bit silent and listen to what they are saying. Sometimes we listen to what they are not saying, but they may be feeling, you know, in a very high state, you may be able to communicate that. They would say that if you can give a voice to that, you know, what that would mean. There are many things one is humbled by kind of learning, and also the way in which people are seeing that we are anything like a forest to any traditional Indian is a community of beings, you know. There is a friend of mine, Mukundan, who used to have a constant chat with somebody from the nomadic Korava community, used to come and meet him every now and then with a bottle of honey. So one day I asked him, these days you are not bringing honey, what happened? So this man said, not to give offense to anybody, he said, இப்போ காட்டிலேருந்து தேனெல்லாம் எடுத்துருந்தோம், இப்போ டிபார்ட்மெண்ட் காரன் வந்தப்புறம் காடெல்லாம் வச்சு ஃபாரஸ்ட் ஆக்கிவிட்டானுங்களே. He said, we used to get honey from காடு, but after these department people came, they have destroyed all the காடுs and they converted into forests. Kaadu is a community of living things, you know, who are in harmony with each other. We will take our share of it, but we won't destroy the whole forest. There is deep thinking in this.
There's amazing wisdom there.
Yeah.
These wisdoms, this knowledge, this practicality, in the name of businesses. Okay, oh, can you grow your business every
10x.
year?
No matter what business,
10x.
There are MBA people who say I'll grow it 5x, 10x.
No, I think limitations of our ecology is not understood, okay, in any of these conversations in modern world right now. But
I just want to give you one small example, sir. Today, a whole lot of people say, look, I'm conserving so many 200 varieties, I'm conserving 500 varieties, I'm conserving 1000 varieties. Even the numbers seem to somehow matter. Conserving is just, I mean, in a lot of places, just so many seeds they are collected and kept besides cultivating it in the field. But, I mean, when we started our exploration to even discover or bring some of these traditional rice varieties of Tamil Nadu, what we noticed is amazing. There were a whole lot of farmers who would cultivate a small patch of traditional rice varieties for their own consumption or for the consumption in the village and not for the markets. The market, this is a variety that I give it to the market, and this is the variety I grow for my children, for my pregnant wife, for my lactating sister, or you know, that knowledge was like, I mean, we started documenting all those knowledge, but it's not a knowledge of CIKS. CIKS is only a repository. It's just holding the knowledge and hoping that this will kind of
amazing articulation. For example, I came to know about Mapille Samba in 2021. First time we grew it, okay. You know, it grew so tall, okay, so tall. I couldn't imagine, okay. It was, I'm 6 feet tall, okay, though a little bit bulky, I'm 6 feet tall, okay, and it if I go walk in that paddy field, it used to submerge me. It was growing so tall, and that wisdom of Mapille Samba, okay, Samba, okay, in Tamil way of describing it, grown in let me say rainy season, and it is required for Mapille, okay, the
bridegroom.
Madhu Maga, okay,
Yeah,
in Kannada it is we need to feed him, okay, he's getting married, we need to feed him, okay, so that's a wisdom, okay, and when we got hold of that rice, okay, we grew it, that rice, okay, and we took them to our community kitchen, okay, and we cooked,
Okay.
and we served, okay. First day full strike. I can't eat this, I need white rice.
White rice.
Where is white rice? Okay, so we are so narrowed, okay, right now, full strike. Then we told, if you want to eat, tomorrow there's no rice. Okay. Then we also learned how to cook it, okay, we need to soak it, and before cooking. So a lot of things associated with it, okay, but the point what I'm trying to say is the wisdom of that variety, and the functionality of where, okay, and why that needs to be used, and practicality of how to cook it and how to eat.
Exactly.
So there are a lot of things,
of
okay, a lot of things associated with a crop, okay. We just convert that one to, can you get me 20 tons of Mapille Samba? Is that the articulation? Arey yaar, just first understand what is Mapille Samba. Growing 20 tons of Mapille Samba is practically impractical unless you plan for next 4 or 5 years, okay. So this is a limitation of our modern thinking. See, it's not ecological thinking. The modern businesses, the way they are thinking is they are not ecologically sound. But the next question to you both Balu and Idus, why this ecological thinking we are forcing on certain set of people, okay, and why not a city dweller preserving a rice variety, why is not his, okay, problem, why it is only farmers problem? We are saying, oh, they are growing, they are preserving all of it, why such a this one is it something, is a privilege, a money person people have, I can buy through, I can create a market, is that aham which is driving that articulations? I think it's a little bit harder, deep question, Balu. It's just not about knowledge, just not about this one, how this knowledge is used, manipulated, and how we push, okay, a land which probably used to grow a small amount of Mapille Samba, now acres to acres to acres together, probably you will convert into Mapille Samba, and probably you will not be able to sell. A lot of people don't know how to use it. Okay, you need to put a lot of marketing machinery to sell it. Oh, education, soak it and eat it. So this kind of a thought, okay, what do you think? Where are we heading?
No, actually, it seems to me at multiple levels, there is no single linear answer to this. So, in 2-3 levels, I have to articulate this. The very first level is the, for example, Tamil Nadu government several years back had a committee to advise and formulate a policy on organic farming, in which as an NGO representative, Vijay was there. One of the, even the yardsticks by which you used to assess how ecological or organic farming is to be compared to chemical farming is very heavily loaded, you know. For example, for a type of comparison that you want to do, actually there is no level playing field even in modern economics between organic agriculture and chemical agriculture, because the parliament records, official records will tell you that there is a deep amount of subsidy given to chemical farming at a variety of levels. The chemical fertilizers are subsidized, the chemical pesticides are subsidized, the fungicides are subsidized in various ways. Secondly, if you look at education, anybody who goes through a modern BSc, MSc education, they are educated in chemical agriculture. Every person whom we recruit for job in CIKS, we have been doing for 25 plus years, We have people who are diploma agriculture, undergraduate, postgraduate, MPhil, PhD. If at all they have any knowledge of agriculture, it may be because of the accident of family background, or they join after joining CIKS they learned, which means the entire agriculture system is subsidizing education by chemical agriculture. Inputs for sustainable agriculture, if you see, if I am doing chemical farming today, if I have money, all the inputs for chemical agriculture can be bought off the market, either just paying cash or notionally. For sustainable agriculture, variety of technologies inputs are not available in sufficient quantity, satisfactory quality. In every way this is handicap. In a deeper economic sense, one of the handicaps is that chemical agriculture is continuously doing an enormous amount of damage to soil, damage to people's health. The modern economics does not put a value on things that are not traded in the marketplace.
Yes.
Supposing I am running a, let us say, a tannery unit, and the effluent has so much chromium, cadmium, I can't just discharge into the Adayar river. They will say polluter pays principle, you have to clean it up, and the industry with such heavy chemical dependence type of tanning will become economically unviable. But for generations, chemical farmers have been
Yes.
polluting the land that you and I use, water that you and I use. There is no way to put a dollar or rupee value on it, because the modern economics the way it stands. So, even in principle at the level of economics you get defeated, and there is a very peculiar system that we have for authentication. It is like if you find somebody has committed a crime, you catch him and take him to court. You catch an innocent person and say that, can you prove that you are not indulged in theft, or not indulged in arson, can you not indulge in all sorts of things. I have to produce documents to say that I didn't use chemical pesticides, I didn't use fertilizers, I have done this sampling, I have done this record, I have done this audit record, etc. So, it has to be interrogated at multiple levels before we realize. But here also there is a Tamil proverb which says Vaidyanikku kudupadai Vanibanikku kodu, which literally means instead of paying the Vaidya, pay the grocer,
Yes.
which means we eat good healthy food for a lifestyle, your medical bill will go lower. No? So, in a sense there is a wisdom in that, but to translate that into modern economics, modern agriculture, modern lifestyle system, there are many things to be done. We have tried to take some baby steps in that direction, not very successful. Just to give you an example, we told Gandhigram University, with whom we are in good dialogue, why don't we start a course in sustainable agriculture. The only condition being is the resource persons for that should not just be university scientists, but also experienced organic farmers. Gandhigram said yes. We got it funded from some foreign source. The course ran beautifully for 1 year. We naively thought that the university system will pick it up and now adopt it. Then we learned that as per the regulations of UGC, ICR, everything, nobody can teach a subject of farming unless you have a postgraduate degree in farming from a recognized university. So, that is indefinite. So, you have to go deeper into that and transform the education system if you want. There are multiple things like this, it appears that we have to act on. I know,
Now,
she
I have one small thing.
One second, I just
Yeah.
follow on that point. What
Yeah,
you bring
yeah.
it in,
yeah.
the farming. Okay, teaching farming. There's no farming school in India. The farming has been taught by my grandfather to my father.
Yeah, yeah.
My father taught me. That's how the farming has been, knowledge has been passed
That's
on
right.
to
That's right.
That's
generations. You like it or not.
Yeah.
That's right.
The teaching systems what we have is a crop sciences.
Yeah.
Okay, it is not farming. Farming exists in a context. For example, the same teaching, okay, of paddy. How do you grow paddy? How do you raise a nursery? How do you transplant? How do you, okay, take care of paddy? May be taught in a college, but the paddy growing in this field, okay, with red sandy loamy soil, okay, a little bit of a clay soil, and for rain fed irrigation, and is this is in the context of the let me say, do I have any wild boar attacks here? Okay, do I have people to transplant here? There are a lot of, okay, context what Balu you are saying for growing paddy, you know. So the moment you limit yourself saying that you need to have a postgraduate degree, okay, in teaching farming, It beats my logic. I didn't know this. Okay, then technically they can arrest me, isn't it? That's what you're saying. Okay,
We are looking for publicity, we can arrange that, sir. I know business has a philosophy that there is no such thing as good or bad publicity. Publicity is publicity.
Publicity.
No, that's crazy, Balu. I didn't know
that's
this. Okay.
No, this is what Gandhigram people said. Among the agriculture people, university people know, they are among the most benign and friendly we can talk to, like we are talking. They have humility still. They still have roots in the surrounding area. Some of our team members, like Subramanian, is a product of Gandhigram University. They are friends with us and all that. Yeah. So he said we cannot institutionalize it. We ran this because somebody in Europe thought that, okay, Balu, Vijay have this idea, they have the same, why don't we do this? We did that. But then that is how it turned out. Yeah, I'm sure you have a lot.
No, not a lot. You have said most of it, but I want to just tell you about one very exciting and interesting program that we are doing and which gives us tremendous satisfaction. We are doing a farm certification program. Farm certification, we call it farm certificate program because there seems to be some name that has to be given by the school for it. And here there are these young children, 11-year-old, 12-year-olds, 35 of them. For 2 years, they come here and spend 2 days every month, 40 days over a period of 2 years, and they learn entire cycle. They are in the field. In fact, 90% of this work is practical work, no theory classes, and they learn how to cultivate paddy, what is what are the steps involved, how to cultivate groundnut, how to cultivate vegetables. They go into the villages, they talk to the farmers, and who are the teachers for this? The people who work in the farm, not they teach them, the women who do the transplanting, they teach them how to do the transplanting, how to do the harvest, how to do the weeding, what to do, and they also go and visit, see how the panchayats operate in the villages. They learn about rural life. They learn about however bad the water management system is today, does it still exist, what it was some time before. So it's an amazing learning, and these are children who always thought that rice even comes from just the supermarket, just a packet you can just pick up, or milk comes from a packet which you can just pick up again morning somebody comes and delivers it at home. They learn, in fact, they even visited your farm this year to learn more about dairy farming. I feel we should, have more such programs almost made compulsory in our education system, because I feel, I think we are all spoiled thoroughly. It's the children who are 11, 12 at a very impressionable age. How much they learn, and they clean the cowshed in the morning. And children will say, it's smelly, I won't touch the cow dung. Even within 4 or 5 months, they are transformed people.
See, I think one thing we need to acknowledge, Balu and Vijay, is probably we are glorifying agriculture a lot, okay? And see, data is very straightforward, okay, for any decision maker, okay? 15% of our economy is agriculture. 60% of people are dependent on agriculture, okay? A lot of dependency on agriculture, okay? So that's one pain point for government, okay? How do we change that? Is, okay, we might create a service sector, etc. Take some people out from agriculture, okay, and put them in service sector. Maybe only 15% of the people need to be in, okay, in agriculture. That's the policy statement, So in the process, what we have done structurally in that policy implementation, I'm not saying it's wrong, but we are implementing it. We have taken young people out of farming.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So therefore, I know you obviously you know this data. Average age of an Indian farmer today is 51. Okay, and average age of India is 30. Such a young nation with such a aging farming population. So what has happened to? I'm going back to earlier question. Are we putting too much stress on that aging population? Hey, okay, you need to grow food which is nutritious. You need to take care of the soil. You need to be, okay, take care of ecology, while the policy is actually exactly opposite, okay? Policy is trying to ensure young people are removed. When the young people are removed, no innovation happens in farming, and no girl is willing to marry a boy who is doing agriculture. I think if you don't realize this, okay, the farming, okay, communities will disappear. Okay, slowly they will disappear. Given all this, okay, drama around, okay, glorifying agriculture, in fact, agriculture is the most non-sought after profession in the country
That's
today.
true. Yeah.
Any boy or a girl who is born in a village, okay, parents tell very straightforward way, study well,
Yeah.
okay, go and get a job, okay, farming is done. So in the context of that, okay, again segueing into, do you think the future exists for farming? So there are no young people in farming, and by policy we are removing people from farming. I was reading Agricultural Testament by Albert Howard. Okay,
Yeah.
so in one of the chapters he says, okay, most of the knowledge, okay, of farming is not actually with landlords, people who own land, if you can call them landlords. People actually who go and work for him.
That's true.
Okay, those are the people who carry that knowledge. Okay, and they don't own land, you know. Conventionally how we have been that
Yeah.
there's a person with a land, okay, he supported 10 or 20, 30 people coming and working in that land. When the land, okay, owner made some money, I think it got distributed. Okay, that's how the systems, maybe we need to reimagine how these entire systems work, and getting young people back to farming is becoming critical. Okay, to my question is, do you see a hope? Okay, it's a question to both of you. You can just order it, okay, answer it the way you believe is right. Okay, at least personally, I don't see a hope. Agriculture, farming, okay, agriculture is the wrong word. Farming as a vocation of choice is nobody's business. We talk, okay, we are submerged in yields. Okay, yields. Okay, how much yield it is coming?
Yeah.
We are submerged in that. Viability of farming is lost. Okay, to you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel hopeless like you, Shashi.
Wow.
Okay. I still feel there is a lot of hope. Okay, but it's not easy. It's not easy, and I think there should be more Akshayakalpas. There should be more CIKS. We should. I mean, I'm not boasting about it. We should. I think whatever lifetime we have, we should spend developing this, seeing how we can do and how we can let the youngsters carry on this tradition. I still have a lot of hope. It's possible we can do. I don't know if I'm being very naive, but I am not going to lose hope. Yeah.
Well, philosophy view, what it says. That's the practical view. Okay, let us see. Okay, what philosophy says.
No, there are 2-3 things I have. No? For example, I deeply suspect numbers that come out of purely modern economic thinking, crunching numbers saying that 15% is this, 60% is that, because somewhere along the line there is a question of what is the value that you put on something. No? I mean, for example, both in an ecological and a realized way, it seems like the value that you put on something like a coal or any mineral is how much time do you take in digging up and all the labor that is involved in transporting, processing it. The fact that that mineral is formed over geological life scale
Millennia.
and you are eating up into that capital figures nowhere in this economics, that is one thing. But talking the language of the modern state itself, the way I just feel about modern state who is running it is that in a reflective way I feel that it is not as if there is a different set of people who are evil and greedy with low level motivations who are running the modern states against Balu who has high philosophical motivation. No, people are running the modern states is as much like I am as much a child of modernity as my brother-in-law who is doing molecular biology research and continued doing that. Now, I was not born and nurtured in a village or any such thing. But even in a deeper sense, I think that one of the lessons of history, deeper and modern, is that sufficiency of food and capacity to produce and manage your own food in a deep sense is something that is very important. Ultimately, we feel even more recently Soviet Union collapsed because of the food security related issue much more than the number of rockets or nuclear power heads they had compared to any other thing. So, in a deeper sense some of this, and in a very interesting sense what the Iran and the Middle East Gulf is teaching you is that the basic level of lesson of civilization through history is that all these were formed in river banks. You need water for drinking, you need water for agriculture. Then you suddenly see that there are so many states in the Middle East that have sprung up, which are so fragile if their water systems are knocked out. No? You are getting back to basics in terms of your food and water, do you have control of it, do you have etc. Keeping that in mind, I think that we can and should rediscover the meaning of agriculture and the richness of agriculture, which I think is possible. And in the long term perspective of time, though we have done enormous amount of damage to agriculture economy in the last 75 to 90 years, the fact that we have a knowledge system and people and memory going for at least 30 to 40 centuries does count for something, you know. And strange as it may seem, our ancients have always felt and expressed through stories, myths and all that, from what does an action derive its power or significance. They are talking about a quantity that is called as your Shraddha, or the motive or the intention, being overpowering when compared to the hardware part of it. No? Our stories tell us that Sudama took 3 fistfuls of poha when he went to meet Lord Krishna. What is the value of 3 fistfuls of poha? Is it 1 gold coin? No. 1 silver coin? No. A few copper coins? Yes. And in return they say he called Kubera Sampat. You know. What does it mean as return on investment if, if he looks upon it in that way? So, I am just saying that in terms of the sincerity and Shraddha in which you have to strike out, saying that, you know, that is the direction in which we go. We have to kind of go on and we have to keep that as an ideal. Once again, I think I have a very practical answer from this from Gandhi. He was talking about brahmachari, and the perfect brahmachari should be like this. Then Kripalani told him that, look, this all sounds very abstract to me. If you say a perfect brahmachari should be like this, I can hardly think of a single perfect brahmachari, and if you do not mind me saying, you Mahatma, even you are not a perfect brahmachari. Mahatma Gandhi said, of course that is right, but do not you see that should still remain our ideal.
Yeah, wow.
Please do not dilute the ideal and say that is not, that still remains an ideal, and that is the lodestar which gives the direction which you make effort, in which you work, etc. And the fact that the rest of the world is not so believing in it, once I am convinced of it, I have to work along that line and do that. Now, you may say this is unrealistically philosophical, but what else is philosophy once if you, but
I think this is
no,
more practical than
no, so I just say that we have to do that, and deep down I really feel that if you scratch the surface, this type of deep wisdom relating to people, relating to ecosystem is there in the hearts of the Indian people. No? It is there in the hearts of our Indian people. I do not think that we are so completely lost our moorings that we are a different people yet. No, I do not think so. That is why I think that it is very profound, not just as a philosophy but practical wisdom. And Gandhi said that I only tried to give words to thoughts that were lying deep in the hearts of the Indian people. I think we have to articulate that, give it a more public presence, and this.
Yeah, I think fair point, Balu and Vijay. Only way of solving, at least personally I have felt, the lows we are in agriculture, farming, is trying to get young people back to farming and create that positivity about farming. These young people should talk, hey, farming is good. These young people should say, I am able to get a girl and I can marry. I am still a farmer. And these people should be able to say, I am living as comfortable as a city dweller. Why the city dweller needs to still live comfortably in cities, but people in villages still need to live very comfortably in villages. Villages now, right now, hardly any population below 45. Most of the population has gone out. So I think if we can get some young people into farming, and I think we can change this narrative, keeping Swaraj as a forefront of our discussion.
So
Interesting.
thank you for provoking us to walk
Yeah,
or
it was,
recall a lot of our journey. Of course, the journey is a collective thing
Yeah.
in which we are.
Yeah.
It may look as if we are the initiators and the movers of it, but we are also, in a sense, participants. Then there are a lot of other people around who are actually moving things. No, many of them are around us. We'll meet them as we say.
I think some of the conversations are hard, Balu and Vijay. I think that's what it is all about.
Yeah.
Trying to can we collectively get our wisdom together
yeah.
Yeah.
and get a collective learning knowledge systems which are practical enough, okay, to be taken into masses and revive what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It
Thank
was
you.
really very refreshing.
Okay.